Cool. All right. Welcome, Amy. It's good to see you on YouTube.
On the YouTube.
The YouTube. Be correct with that. The YouTube. That's right. We had a little fun with that. Last week.
Oh my gosh. Yes, we did. Yes, we did.
Good times.
Oh my gosh. And you know what? I'm really, really, really excited about today's conversation because I just got off the phone with this really great couple. And you know what? Everything we're going to talk about today is exactly where I left them when we met. And the reason why, Shane, is because they at the heart of their life, they love to serve people, right? That is one thing that they love to do, but they're also both creative and they both are very entrepreneurial and they know how to work. They're hard workers. But the miss for them was that they really had not made a commitment to a product. So the product was, they had developed this thing. It was very customizable. It's a beautiful product. They spent a lot of time on it. You can't scale it because it's centralized only on him. You know, no one else can do it. The cost of goods is going up. The margin is coming down. And I just, I could see the love that they had. And I could also feel the tension of, I really just want to tell you to do what I'm telling you to do, right? Like they're
both sides. Yeah.
You can feel it from both sides, although they're respecting one another and they love one another. And I just said, hey, protect that and make this product decision from logic, because I said nothing else matters until you have a conviction. And man, how many times have we seen that with owners that they are just trying to sling mud up against the wall to see what sticks so they can just get something going?
That's right. Yep. Yeah. And it doesn't matter what stage of the business is.
That's right.
If you haven't gotten to this place of making the decision based on logic, well, now it gets more costly. Making those decisions, the bigger the business is. But nonetheless, it applies across the board. Yeah. It's interesting as you were saying that, you know what I thought? It's like, okay, if I can't make a commitment to a product, what am I committing to? Right? Because we all commit to something.
Yep.
Like if I'm not able to make that decision, like, okay, well then what is it that I am committing to that's causing me to wrestle with this decision? It's interesting.
Right.
Question. Yeah.
Well, and I think that we can speak to that question intelligently. Don't you think? I think we have talked to enough owners and have been in these massive corporate structures, and you grew one. And so you grew one from nothing to a big old $40 million compound. You guys had like this massive, I feel like there should have been a moat and a bridge, man. Like it was just beautiful. Like it was this huge, amazing building. Like this is how a lot of people equate success is by the building, right? Or an office or a brick and mortar
or whatever.
Yep. Or the amount of people that they've hired. And oftentimes the big reason in the beginning is I want something new. So I know in some people's cases, they want out of their current job. And so they just think if I can just get this thing going, I can leave my job. Right. Or they need to replace an income really fast.
Yes.
Or they have an idea and they think if I can just get this idea to market, it's going to take off and I'll be fine. I'm not afraid of the work. Most of these people are never afraid of the work.
I agree. Yes, that's right.
But typically what we are married to is us first.
Girl. Woo! We're getting down to
right.
It. Yes.
I know. It's so hard to admit.
I just had a conversation with a client. And we were talking about this root issue that we're going to address right here, right?
Yeah.
And that idea of who is at the center of this, most people are not doing it intentionally, right?
Yeah.
They don't even know what it is that is happening. And so the way I shared it with my client earlier was, listen, it's not that what you're trying to achieve is incorrect. It's how you are going about to achieve it that is. And that's often the times around this issue. It's not what we're trying to achieve that's incorrect. It's how we're going about getting there that could use just some small pivots.
Yeah, for sure. And because wanting to make money or wanting to be an entrepreneur and wanting to have control are not bad things.
That's right. That's right.
It's not bad. But there is some, there's these echoes like in the corridors of the internet that you just hear faster is better, and we can do it faster for you, and we can get X amount done for you now, or there's always a faster way, and there just isn't. Yep. There just isn't. And so I want to dive right into the last and final essential of scale. That's what we've been talking about the last 3 weeks, Shane. And if we recall, essential number 1 was sustainability. That's what we're talking about. Like, if you don't have something that can be sustainable, we can't duplicate it, which is the second essential. Anything that is scaling is duplicating. That is, that the two are not mutually exclusive. They are like twin sisters.
That's good.
If you are scaling, you have to know how to duplicate. And what are you duplicating? You have to duplicate the same kind of person that finds value in what you're doing enough to pay for it, enough to stay in it, and enough to tell other people about it. And then you need to be able to duplicate the thing that they say is the most valuable first.
Yep.
And without those two things, without duplication on the acquisition piece of the client marketing and converting them into the business, and without duplication on the product side, what you have is one is out of balance. And I'm not a big fan of balance, but just go with me here with these scales. If marketing is out of balance, or you've got too many offers, this thing is going to tilt at some point, and that's when we get the mess of scale.
That's good.
And so the third most important part of scaling is the third essential is something I call ascending. So ascending is a slow and steady climb. It's not a fast catapult. It's not a rocket launch. It is a slow and steady, consistent climb. And what that looks like is you climb, you wait, you climb, you wait, you climb, you wait. That's what ascending is. And ultimately, we think of scaling like a ladder where we're just going from one rung to the other. Not so. It is more of an ascension. It is more of a moving up an angle, not up a straight line. And so I want to make that really clear as we dive into this. And I have to say that my biggest obstacle to ascending is me. 100% of the time. It's never the tool. It's never the person I've hired. It's me. And, I am quickly reminded of a teaching that I listened to of John Maxwell's. Now, you and I have been around John Maxwell for years, right?
Yep.
When I first started, I was 23. When I first started training myself to read outside of school, it was with all of his books.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I have to tell you, honestly, Shane, like the way I read, the way he talks is not the way I heard him in this video. He was much more direct with the people that were listening. I feel like as I've watched him, mature over the years, that he's gotten a much more direct. He's still just as kind as butter, but he's gotten more direct. I feel like, have you seen that?
Yeah. It was one of the things I love about him. Like he actually practices what he preaches. He continues to grow. Right.
Yes.
So he's not going to sound the same as when you and I heard him back in the 90s today, because he's grown. Yeah. It's fabulous. I love it. And I love the directness, because now I don't have to guess about what he's saying. He's like, oh, that's what I need to be considering. Yeah.
Yes. I'll never forget. He stands up on stage and he holds his arm up in the air like this. And I was like, where is he about to go with that arm raised in this way? I was like, what are we doing? What are we doing? So he said, and he points to his arm and he says, everything worthwhile is uphill. Everything. And it just kicked me in the gut, man. I was like, wow, there is absolutely nothing in our business that is valuable, that was fast, that was easy, or was quick. Have you found that to be true for yourself?
Yeah, I just was thinking about that illustration, like uphill, just in its, what conjures up in your mind when you think uphill? Slow.
Yeah.
Slow and steady. Like you don't, if we were runners, which we're not, but if we were, we would see hills. We're like, oh, the pace is going to slow here. Like that's right. So what John is saying is the slow and steady pace is the path to what is worthwhile in anything. Like, okay, really anything, relationships, business, weight loss, anything? Yes.
Yeah. Yes.
But that's not necessarily, what we desire.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, the most valuable things are always going to be uphill. He went on to say, he said, you have to fight for them every day. You have to get up and climb every day. There is nothing that will give you overnight success. And he went on to say that someone had said this, and I didn't catch the quote, the person that said it, but he was quoting someone else when he said, my whole life, I've worked to be an overnight success. Right. So that's the truth, is that there's a lot of echoes in the corridors of digital marketing and gurus and experts and teachers and coaches and consultants that are saying, hey, faster is better. Look at this fancy TikTok is it. Instagram stories is it. There's just so many things that are fighting for our attention. And so when I say my biggest obstacle to ascending was me, it was because I had downhill habits and I had to improve my uphill habits. Right. Yep. And the reality is the more every step I take up slow and steady up that incline of business scale, what I'm finding is more and more downhill habits I have.
Yep.
Right.
Yeah, it's easy. I'm just thinking back to the initial part of this conversation, right? Choosing a offer.
Yes.
One. It's easier to have 5 than it is to have 1. Much easier.
Yeah.
Right? Like the habits that come along with increasing your offers are much easier to step into than the habit of having 1.
Exactly.
Very different.
Yeah. What have you found? Because you came from a company with massive product lines. And you started into your coaching business in the same way. You were doing lots of different things, right?
Yes.
So when you say it takes a lot more discipline to have 1 offer than to have 3 or 5 offers, what is that? What do you mean by that?
Yep. So when you're just getting started and you're making the bet on the one thing, we've talked about the process to get to a place where you're making a bet based off of information, not your opinion. So I want to caveat what I'm about to say with that, right? So not just a whim like, hey, this one. So when you have had some success with the one, the discipline to say no to other things that are shiny objects that come along just because you can. There's a lot of decisions that I made along the way because they were the only thing that I could afford to do.
Yep.
So in the early days in that business that we built to be $40 million in gross revenue, when we were losing $250,000 a year for the first 2 years, it was easy to say no. We can't afford it. Nope, can't afford it. But when we started to see the tide turn, it became more difficult. We saw all these possibilities, interest, the fads, the whatever, and it was really easy to say yes because we could afford it, right? Like, so the discipline for me of being able to get to the place where I can say, okay, that's good, but it's not great. To quote a Jim Collins, quote, like, that's good, but it's not great. There's a better yes that I can have, which allows me to say no to this thing. I think the other side of it is, and I cannot remember this guy's name. Doggone it! Somebody will find it, and maybe they'll post it in the comments here. But there's a book where this author, the book title is "How the Mighty Fall."
Okay,
right? Great book. I wish I could know the name of the guy who said it. How the Mighty Fall. And one of the things that causes the mighty, those people who achieve some level of success, to then at some point begin to see massive decline, is something he called the hubris born of arrogance. Like, woo, what does that mean? It's like, okay, you have some success and you have it at a level to where you believe you've got the Midas touch. And everything that you do, you just throw it out, and then people, are just going to come. And there is Maxwell would call it luck, right? Like, so there's an element of luck, but luck is not, something that's just mysteriously ethereal out there. It's like, no, it's a combination of your intuition and your experience. And if you make a decision, there are some times where you'll be right, but you won't know why you're right or what made it right or any of that.
Yeah.
And if you hit one of those, the hubris born of arrogance emerges. And you start thinking, well, if I did it there, I could do it here, and I could do it here, and I could do it here. And that's where it was easy to say yes to those things. The self-discipline thing would have been to recognize we have no idea how we achieve that success. It is not possible to duplicate something that you cannot define.
Yes.
Like, it's easier to say yes when you don't know than it is to say no when you've got the truth.
Yes.
Because we can have this hubris born of arrogance. Yeah.
Yes.
That was a long answer to a short question.
No, it was so good. It was so what I hear you saying is we really cannot reap the rewards of the climb with downhill behaviors.
You can't. You just can't.
And
it'll catch
and
you.
all,
It will catch you.
It will catch you, right?
It may take time, but it'll
that's
catch
right.
you.
That's right. And in the more money you're making or the more money you have to throw at the problem, the longer it will take you to catch it, which is why I think that that ego steps in and has more time to fester.
That's right.
When you've got resources of time or money.
Absolutely. Boy.
Right.
Golly, I'm having, flashbacks.
Yes. And owners that give in to those downhill habits and aren't willing to say, I really don't know where the client is coming from. I really got lucky. All of my friends bought my franchise and now I don't know how to go get into more franchise owners.
Yeah.
Like, wow, when I look back over the last 12 years of growing my business, I have no clue where the people came from.
Yes.
Like, it's
that's a courageous
it
thing
is,
to say. Yes.
It is courageous. It is courageous. And I really believe that owners that give in to these downhill habits and leaders that give into these downhill habits rather than learn the artful skill of self-control, basically their behavior says to me, I want to coast to success.
Yeah. When's the last time you coasted uphill?
Right. Exactly. Great question.
Yeah.
Great question. You can't just come in and just suddenly be like, oh, I've won the lottery. That whole Midas touch you were talking about. Right. Yeah. And most people have no trouble climbing for a couple of days. Right. I had recently acquired a client and he got into the work in a few days and he said, I'm just not willing to do the procedural work associated with getting this outcome that I want. After looking at what it's going to take, even though you spent days answering every question and telling me that I was going to have to do all this stuff, for some reason, I really thought, nah, I don't have to do that because I'm a Kajabi hero and I've got, a couple hundred people in an email list. Oh, I'm sorry, maybe 1,000 people in an email list. I got a couple hundred people in private groups. And, I get a client here and there from these things and, but I'm still not profitable. So one day this will finally catch on. What I'm telling you is that at the end of 12 months, if the business can't make a profit, something is wrong. Yeah. And what most people don't understand about numbers is that time is fluid. It cannot be saved. So one day coasting can wipe out 5 days of climbing.
It's like me and that bag of chips at 9:30 wipes out 2 days worth of good weight loss.
Exactly. It's right. Yes. And you've heard it said, Shane, time marches on. Yeah. And people will say things like, I've been climbing for a while, right? And nothing is happening. But with further assessment, you will be able to say, well, I don't climb as often or consistently as I should, and that's the truth. Consistency is where power comes from. It doesn't come from, and greatness comes from consistency. It does not come from a great marketing campaign, a certain amount of money that you're making, a private jet that you can rent, a great car you can buy, a lifestyle where you can just travel and the money rolls in. That's not where greatness comes from. Greatness comes from consistency. And the reason for the consistent starts and stops is because we are taken away from the priority of what we have said we are going to do every single time something comes across our feed. and reminds us that we're really not convicted in what we're doing.
Yeah. Yeah. Boy, I've never thought of it like that. Like that's well said. You're right. Whenever that thing comes across that causes you to, lose your focus.
Yeah.
The reason behind it could be, you don't have
lack of conviction.
Like, is there something else? Is there something better?
Yeah. Yeah. And I have to tell you this, because yesterday I was confronted with this, right? So I have a friend who's a successful entrepreneur, and I had just been sharing with her my process and just kind of giving her, she wanted to try some things and see if it would work for her market. And so she is a starter and a stopper. And by her own words, she's a starter and a stopper. And she challenged me yesterday that maybe my process isn't for her industry. And I sat back and I was like, no, I would never change my process. It's for the people that want to work the process. It's not for a certain industry.
Yeah, that's good.
And that is the truth. There's too much proof of concept. And that's where conviction for me has come from, Shane, is proof, not social proof, because I've got all of these outcome generated testimonials. No. Because every business I started, I had no testimonial and no list. And the reality is that I had proof that what I was saying meant something to the person reading it.
Yeah.
And I knew that if they landed on that piece of content and had a conversation with me, and if they fit this criteria, I could help them. But you see, those behaviors of starting and stopping kills enthusiasm and momentum, and it surely doesn't arouse conviction.
No.
Right? And so we start downhill because it feels good to start and stop things, to start something new. We finally feel like, oh, we're on to something new, and this is a breath of fresh air. And it feels faster going downhill than it does going uphill.
Yeah, it does.
Right?
It does.
And so, and I heard John Maxwell also said this. He said, I've never had a book write itself. He said, I write every single day except for Sunday. And I can tell you all of the 6 phases of my consulting process, I do 6 days a week, except for Sunday. Yeah. I'm positioning my value in the marketplace. I'm developing content. I'm developing my model that gets my clients what they want fastest and better. I'm conducting phone calls with people that say they want my service. I'm taking off every day through measuring the metrics and ensuring I have time to enjoy my life. And seriously, I've never had content develop itself, sell itself, or convert itself.
Nope.
Never. And, people say, well, so what do you have to do to ascend? Well, what you have to do is commit to your conviction, not to your bank account or to your product. But why are you doing this? With that conviction will come the desire, and from desire comes motivation. And now you've got the motivation to get up a little bit earlier, to block time, to stay up a little bit later, and to block time and do the work that is necessary. That's what I do. I get up a little bit earlier. I'm a morning gal. I'm not a night owl. So I get up early and I get the most valuable work done before I could ever be interrupted, before the phone, before my children. And I know you and I have talked a lot about blocking time. And I have found that to be one of the single greatest disciplines introduced to me as a very young executive. And I have kept with that discipline because blocking time eliminates multitasking.
Yes, it does.
I get X amount of time to do this writing project. Okay. When that is done, then I can go on to the next thing on the list. Not, well, while I'm listening, while I'm typing, I could be listening to this thing. I could be listening to somebody's, webinar about how I could get more leads while I'm writing content. And
I'm like, oh my gosh, that was me 5 years ago. Yep.
I've been there myself. Like, well, I could write content while I'm standing at this desk watching people come in the door. No, it just doesn't work that way. The second thing The second secret, if you will, is consistency. Staying uphill and committing to the uphill process, and just understanding that I'm not going anywhere without self-control and self-discipline.
Right. Yeah.
And Shane, we have looked at these case studies. I would call any of you to go look up the behaviors and lifestyles of some of the greatest leaders that have gone before us. John D. Rockefeller, Henry Ford, Thomas Edison, Warren Buffett, Jeff Bezos. Go study them. Go look at them. Even some of the greatest spiritual leaders of our time. Go look at them. Because the reality is what you will find is the one thing they all had in common: sacrifice, 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 sacrifice. There was no like get, right? It was sacrifice, sacrifice, sacrifice. I mean, that is the name of the game. That is the secret of ascension, is the willingness to say no.
That's so good. That's so good. I'm just making notes over here. Like, man.
Yes.
Conviction is the birthplace of self-discipline. Absent of conviction, you will not be self-disciplined. Because you're always searching. You're always searching for that. What is it that I'm willing to give myself to the point where I would say no to other things.
That's right. Yeah. That's right. And I'm telling you, this is the first rule of 5 rules to ascending. All right. So conviction is the first one. The second one is personal values. You have to know what you stand for, or you will fall for anything. Thus, the reason we have shiny object syndrome in our society today. It's not because of the internet. It's because of lack of personal values.
That's right.
That's what it's from. The third thing is money management. I love this quote. Somewhere between the miser who hoards every penny he gets his hands on in an old sock and the man who spends every cent he can earn or borrow, there is a happy medium. And if we are to enjoy life with reasonable assurance of average freedom and contentment, then we have to find the halfway point and adopt it as part of our self-control program. And that's if we just want average financial freedom.
Yeah, that's good. That's really good.
Right? Money management is a major killer to ascending. And it's still the number one reason that small businesses are reporting that they're closing. You know, you see these general giants falling to bankruptcy. They're not falling to too many products on the shelf. They're falling to bankruptcy. Right? The fourth rule that I have found is partnership. So early in my life, I saw people as a means to my end. Well, if I get X amount of clients, I'll make X amount of money, right? If I make friends with this person, they know this person, right? Everything was about what could I get? I wanted people to do something for me. I wanted them to rescue me from something. I wanted them to give me something I had not earned. And I became judgmental. I was offended, and I did not have fulfilling relationships. And this is when I was introduced to the principle of the mastermind, which you and I believe in. We live. It is a true living, breathing organism, in my opinion.
Yeah, I agree.
Right.
Yep.
And we talk about it. You know, I first saw this demonstrated in the turn of the century with Jesus and his 12 disciples. Like you don't massively take a movement and expand it across a globe in a short period of time unless you have a mastermind and you're in harmony and you're all up against the same mission, right? And you know what? Andrew Carnegie, one of the greatest business minds of our time, he drew his own formula for success from the mastermind he saw in Jesus and his 12 disciples. And then he told other people about it. I mean, you can go Google him and there's YouTube videos of him actually talking about that.
That's cool.
Today, my relationships are about what can I contribute and what can I gain? Not only, and I'm no longer looking at these relationships like what monetary value can you bring me, but I'm looking for the contribution to a third mind in the relationship? Are you contributing to me being a better mother? Are you contributing to me being a better human? Are you contributing to me being a better leader? If you're not contributing and I'm doing all the contributing, or I'm not contributing and I'm only taking, we're out of alignment.
Yep. Right on.
Right?
Right on. Absolutely.
Yeah. And we hit on this, but I want to really make sure you heard us when we said the fifth rule of ascending is self-discipline. And I loved the way John Maxwell wrapped up this class he was teaching when he said, this is what he said. He says, self-discipline is the bridge between good intentions and good actions. So good intentions is on one side of the water and good actions is on the other side. And self-discipline is the bridge that takes our good intentions and turns them into good actions.
That's really good.
Powerful, right?
Yeah, it is. I'm just over here making notes, man.
I know. Boy, it's so stuff. Powerful. And I want to leave you all with the same question that he left us with. And it was, is my attitude about self-discipline more of a bridge or a tunnel? You see, an attitude that is like a tunnel is heavy. It is laborious because it's always about, what am I going through? If I could just go through this, I'll get what I want. And there is a difference between going through something and going to something.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah,
right?
That's good. Yeah.
Because good. Going to something is the bridge. Going through something puts us in a tunnel where we are hoping, please let there be a light at the end of that tunnel.
Yeah, that's right.
Right?
That's right. Yeah. Yep.
And what I heard you say, Shane, and what I have found is that we had to decide that self-discipline would be a journey instead of something we were always carrying like on our backs, and it was hard. And since then, the journey of entrepreneurship has been much easier for us.
Very true. Very true.
Right? Yeah, and self-discipline really is truly the difference between an owner who has limited success and one whose success is sustainable. And so remember this, scale is always an ascending. It's always a climb. It's not a straight line. It's not a ladder. It's not a catapult. There is no rocket ships in the science of scaling your business. And we will reach plateaus and we will need to reevaluate. We will have green pastures and we will have rugged ridges. But the point is we have to keep going or we are actually slipping downhill. We just might not know that yet. Well, so as we sign off here today, we say this and we'll say it again, that systems run your business, but you run the system. So I hope you guys go back and look at the 2 essentials to scale prior to this one and really take it in and start testing some of these principles and concepts and even action items that we've talked about, because I trust that you will find the same